and welcome to Good News Rhode Island, the show about Rhode Island and all the people and places and events that really make Rhode Island a much larger state than it is, because it's a great place to live. Today we're going to be talking a little bit about politics. I think politics is on the minds of everyone, no matter whether it's local or national, statewide. So we're here with Kat Kerwin, who has been working continuously since we interviewed her last time for another hat that she wears. And she, in some ways, represents the new face of the candidates who are running for office this year. So I welcome you, Kat, and thanks for coming back. And we certainly wish you well, and all those who are running, who are in their 20s, who just really want to revitalize the voting system and the political system in the state of Rhode Island. So thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate you giving me this platform and offering it to younger candidates.
Well, tell them to come. We'll talk to them. So let's just be honest. You have a full-time job.
Yes.
And it's a day job, but basically you intertwine the candidacy and the job. So could you just tell us a little bit about your job, even though we have another show about...
Yeah, I work for the Rhode Island Coalition Against Gun Violence. So it's mostly doing organizing work around violence prevention and peace promotion, specifically focused on youth organizing work, which we've been doing really since the Parkland shooting, and there's been such an appetite that has just grown from youth who really want to get involved and learn how to be organizers, learn how to be activists. But yes, that is my day job, and I've begun taking on the role of being a city council person, and I'm going to start officially in January. But, you know, that is also a full-time job. It's also a lot of being on and responding to constituents and answering every call. So it's definitely a lot of good work.
So you're going to keep both jobs?
Yes.
Okay, well, so you'll really have your ear to the ground in a lot of ways. Now, we hear about the Parkland students, and then it sort of falls away, and there's nothing for a while, and then we hear again. Mm-hmm. So they've been here, and you've met them, and you've talked with them, and that has vitalized the kids here, the youth here.
They haven't been in Rhode Island, but we were able to bring a group of youth to go see the Parkland students when they were finishing their March for Our Lives summer tour in Newtown, Connecticut, which was a really, really valuable experience, I think, especially for our youth.
They see kids really taking a stand, standing up, talking, being articulate about their concerns.
Yeah, and I think it also matters that the March for Our Lives students aren't just those survivors from Parkland, Florida, but along their tour this summer, they began recruiting from other cities, youth that were impacted by violence in their communities. We heard from a young woman from inner city in Milwaukee who had experienced gun violence, and she was asked to join the tour. So I think what the March for Our Lives youth are doing so well is making sure that they're incorporating the voices of a diverse group of youth and making sure that they're uplifting those that have been impacted by violence, particularly urban violence.
This happened in Providence this summer. Tyrone Williams was shot. There was another student shot outside of the school.
Yeah.
And so your group, the Coalition Against Gun Violence, must be saying something, but also as a city council member.
Yeah, and that death of William Parsons was so tragic, and it was on the first day of school, and it was particularly hard because we heard from all of his friends that this was such a good kid. He was so hardworking and so innocent, and that's not to say that anyone should lose their lives. No one should be a victim of gun violence. It's especially this sort of senseless gun violence, but I think what we're seeing from this act of violence that we saw on the first day of school, and then also the death of Zachary Cruz Medina, who was shot in Lockwood Plaza, is that there are youth that are feeling helpless, and they're channeling their fear and they're channeling their anger and their frustrations into organizing work. And I think that's really important. And I think as a city council person, I'm most excited to support youth programming and see movement towards making sure that we're bringing in these youth that are at risk of being impacted, and we're bringing them in, and we're offering positive mentors, and we're offering the resources that they really deserve and in many cases do not have.
How does city council affect the job market and the jobs that are available for teens and their parents?
So the city has a summer jobs program which has grown in the past couple of years. And I do think that as a city council person, it's important to advocate for the youth in your community and advocate for the people in your community. And beyond that summer jobs program that city council can help connect folks to, I think there's a really, really important role of city councilors to advocate for job growth in development. So if we are putting up a development in Providence, I know I would advocate to make sure that a certain amount of jobs in that development going up would be jobs for Ward 12 residents.
And then in the building going up, we would also make sure it's affordable. Some of the apartments are affordable.
Absolutely. I think that's something that that we need to be inspecting very closely, because too often we're letting developers come in and we're offering them tax breaks for 10, 20 years. And these are developers that really could pay their tax breaks, and by not having to give the city this money, we're missing out. And so I think the community needs to be benefiting in some way from this deal.
What about subsidized apartments being built?
Subsidized housing
Yes.
inside these
Yes.
buildings? Yeah, I think affordable housing in these developments is something that we need to be asking for and we need to be advocating for, because we need affordable housing on all levels in Providence. And there's been a continuous influx of luxury housing and high-end housing, particularly in Ward 12 in the downtown area. We're seeing a lot of it. And I think if we're not advocating for housing at all levels, we'll be doing the city a big disservice.
I had read that there were a lot of evictions going on right now, and people who are looking for housing who are sort of desperate. Is that something that City Council can address, or?
Yeah, the city has many programs to support affordable housing, to help folks eventually buy their own homes. The Every Home Project revitalizes homes that are in blight, and in Ward 12 we had one of the highest amount of homes in the ward eligible for Every Home benefits. But, you know, we also, I think, need to be working not just as a city, but with the organizations in our communities that are doing work in affordable housing. I'm really lucky to have the Smith Hill CDC that does incredible affordable housing work in my community. And I think by supporting these organizations and working as a coalition to combat the problem, we have a much better chance of tackling it. But we do need to be thinking about affordable housing, and I think it's really on the forefront of many people in the city's minds.
How does the City Council in this kind of issue, how does the City Council work with the mayor, work with the governor, work with other elected representatives and senators?
I think it's very important for there to be a strong Providence delegation. So reps and senators from Providence having a good relationship with the city, with the mayor, with the city council, all the way up to the governor. And I think that when we have a strong capital city that's working with our state, we'll be able to accomplish more. You know, oftentimes people are doing work in certain issues that may not be in coordination, and when we work together, I think there's a lot better chance to see immediate movement on issues.
Is the governor's office responsive to the issues that are of concern to the council?
I think so. I haven't directly worked with the governor's office on anything related to city council yet, just because I won't assume that role until January. Right. So I can't totally speak for them, but I know the governor tends to understand the importance of working with Providence and with the capital city.
It seems to me the coordination and collaboration Even public-private collaboration is so important. It's the only thing that's going to move the city right now, because when it's been dominated by politicos, it doesn't move. And hopefully when it's dominated by people who are really passionate because they live in a particular area or they have a particular axe to grind or they've become experts in something, it seems to me that it will work much better.
Agreed. I think it's always a lighter lift when you have a big team.
I know that Rachel Miller has been working to coordinate people. Probably other people in City Council are doing the same thing.
Yeah, Rachel Miller has been working with these community organizations like DARE and with Jobs with Justice for years. And so she'll be a really good person to have at the table just because she knows so much about community organizing.
The City Council is going to have a different look, different face. And how will the old guard introduce and work with the new guard? What do you think?
I think it will be a good transition. And I think that the folks that have been on City Council for many terms, I think they understand that because most of them are being term limited out, most of the counselors are being term limited out next cycle, that now is the time to bring us in, and now is the time to mentor the younger city councilors or the newer city councilors, and make sure that our city is prepared for when we have a new mayor in 4 years and when we have an almost all-new council.
And possibly a new governor as well, for that matter. So you will be working with people who grew up in a completely different era than the people who've been essentially the ruling class or the politico class here. Right.
Yeah, and I think it's important to have diversity of age on the council. You know, I see things differently for many reasons because of my age. You know, I'm a renter. I'm still in college, so I'm a student. So I'm thinking about those issues. I have a lot of peers that I grew up with and came up with in Providence who've gone away, and I think that it would be beneficial for our city to see those young people that are from our city to come back and get them back. So I do have some unique perspectives because of my age and because of where I am in my life. And I think it's valuable to have that. And I'm also excited to work with the members that have been on the city council and that are older than me. I think having institutional voices to guide decision making is also important and offers a really important context.
That's really important, what you just said, because it has the history as well as the future in mind. And if there is a way to dialogue with all of you working, I don't know how the City Council works or if it works well or not, but maybe it will after this. So I'm really excited about that. I want to talk a moment about the businesses in Providence, because Providence is growing very quickly in a way, certainly faster than it was when I first moved here. And Providence is becoming known as a place to gather, as a destination. And Providence has a lot to offer in terms of restaurants, but also new hotels, you know, water, fire, etc. How about City Council working with entrepreneurs and with people who want to keep the city moving?
Yeah, and I think it's important to be to really emphasize and value this culture that our city has, while also thinking about how we can make sure that the people that have lived here for generations aren't displaced as more people are coming in, and as we're kind of marketed as a destination city for people that may not be able to afford the rents in New York or Boston. And I think making sure that our residents and the people that live here and have invested in Providence for generations are still able to live in Providence and enjoy Providence in the same way is really important. And part of that, especially on Smith Hill, the community that I represent, is working to support small businesses. We do have some empty storefronts on Smith Street, and I think that by supporting small businesses and offering them tools from the city to go in and invest in their communities is really important, because people deserve to have, the basic services and spend their money in their community, get a coffee, go to a bakery. These are basic services, and I think supporting small businesses that want to provide those services is really important.
So can the city council have a cap on rent in certain areas? Can the city council have subsidies for small business entrepreneurs? Can city council do things to make a neighborhood more delightful, more lovely, so that other businesses will come in?
Yeah, and I think there are many policies that could address a lot of the things we're talking about in terms of affordable housing and making a neighborhood better, but without the gentrification, without the displacement. So I think thinking about solutions for affordable housing, potentially rent control, that's something that DARE is always working on. I think thinking about how we can offer resources to small businesses. The city's Economic Development Office does a lot of work on this, specifically supporting women and minority-owned businesses, is something that I definitely want to see in Smith Hill.
Well, the diversity is one of the most beautiful things about our city, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. The fact that you can hear many languages as you walk down the street, or the fact that there are many different kinds of restaurants, or there are many different kinds of people shopping or going to the art events, or whatever.
Agreed, yeah. And I think in Ward 12, the ward that I represent, we see so much diversity because it goes all the way to Valley Street, and it catches Elmhurst, it catches Smith Hill, but then it also catches this downtown area. So it's really one of the most diverse wards of the city.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. I bet you have a good time. I mean, I've watched you over the last summer doing so many different things with so many different groups. I'm interested in Fane Tower, mm-hmm. and wondering what the going gossip is right now in the city about Fane Tower. Yeah,
well, Fane Tower very well may get a vote before I am elected and sworn into the council. And I think this is really an issue that the East Side has expressed a lot of interest in working on, and something that the councilors from the East Side have been facing the most complaints about. But, it is an important issue because if the Fane Tower goes up, the city would be setting a precedent that we don't have to go through these same zoning procedures for every developer, because the developer would be building a building that is far larger in an area that isn't zoned for such a tall building. So I think it would be setting a bad precedent, and I also think that it's important to think very, very carefully about what we're putting on the I-95 development land, because I think that it's such a huge thing of value for the city, and it could be used for public use, it could be used for public parks, there could be many good things that the entire city could enjoy, and I don't know if a luxury apartment building is necessarily the answer. That being said, I do understand the importance of bringing jobs and having union jobs do this work, but I think there will be developers that will want to continue to build, and I would want to be really cautious before allowing a building to go over the zoning laws.
And the look, the design of the building, the use of materials in the building, it seems to me on those close-in properties that are so much a part of the integral part of the center of the city would be very important as well, overseeing all of that.
Yeah.
I get concerned about very plain, simple buildings that are going up that are kind of detracting from the space in a way. So, parks and care of parks, the gems of the city. You said something about building more parkland. The parkland along the end of the river is really lovely, and it's getting better with the footbridge. Right. But are there other areas, for example, the Shooters building that we're hoping that the City Council will get involved in?
Yeah, I think that it's really important to not only create more green space, but also invest in the parks we have. Many parks in the city, just because in a lot of cases our resources don't allow for an incredible amount of investment in every park because we have so many. But I think, in Smith Hill, I'd like to see more green space. I think there are many empty plots I'm looking at and hoping someday become parks. Thinking about how we can integrate farming and how we can put a use in some of these gardening, in some of these plots. And how we can make neighbors excited about doing that. Because I know in my community we have Davis Park that does have a garden, and it doesn't get an incredible amount of use from the community. And so I think it's important when we are investing in these resources and when we do want to see things come out of parks or other public resources that we have robust outreach and we make sure that the community gets to enjoy it.
And gets trained to use it. I mean, how many people know how to grow cabbages or whatever?
Exactly.
Whatever
Definitely not me. Definitely not me.
Okay. The mayor, is he open to hearing new ideas from the city council members, or what do you think about?
I think so. I think the mayor definitely wants to see the best version of his city. And I think his team has been very, very helpful in outreach and trying to have a good relationship with the city council. And I'm really excited to work with the mayor and his team.
That's really good, I think. An adversarial relationship would not be helpful. I want to ask you also about Superman building. It's very near to my heart. I don't know why, but I just think it's just a perfect place to have apartments of some sort. Couldn't there be multi-financial or multi-based apartments?
Yeah, I definitely think the building is architecturally beautiful, and it's so important to our skyline and to kind of the heart of the city. And I would love to make sure it doesn't get torn down. And I would definitely, depending on what the sort of development would be that went in and what the city would have to give to that sort of project, I'd be interested in working on that. But I do think that it's important that in spaces like that we do whatever's best for the city, and I would hope that it wouldn't be such a huge investment that we'd have to give a lot.
And there must be builders who are very interested in redesigning a building like that, I would think.
Yeah.
But it can't go too long. It can't be empty too long.
Yeah, truly. Education.
I don't know what the City Council does in terms of education, but I know we've talked to the superintendent of schools, we talked to various teachers in the schools, but I'm wondering, obviously schools are going to reinvent themselves in some way in the next 20 years. Education is going to change. We're going to have kids who are trained to do jobs when they come out of high school, as well as to do jobs to get into college, but to support themselves while they're in college. And the specificity of the jobs will be different, I believe.
Right.
So how do we start now with an education system that's very antiquated, very much in need of a huge amount of inflow of cash? Is it with private-public, corporate interaction? What is the way that it will work?
I think we need to invest fully in our public education systems, and I think we need to see parent involvement. We need to bring in the parents and make it a multi-generational learning process. And I think also investing in our schools and making them that kids feel safe in and kids feel are comfortable spaces is really important, because in a lot of cases we have students that are in buildings that are falling apart. So luckily, vote yes on one. That's something that's happening right now, is we're trying to invest more money in our schools across the state, not just in Providence. And the legislature did vote on that. And I think investing in the physical spaces and making kids excited to go to school, and then also getting parent involvement is something that I definitely want to work on in Ward 12, in my elementary school, Kazarian, in the middle school, Nathaniel Green. And I think that's something we can do on a school-by-school basis, case-by-case basis. And I think we really need to look at schools like that individually.
School systems now look at anyone who wants to volunteer as a potential threat.
Yes.
And so it really stops people who have quite a bit of training and experience from going into schools and working on really solid education about how the world works.
I agree. The background checks are a huge barrier to a lot of folks. I often think about formerly incarcerated people who are having trouble finding jobs because of background checks, and they have time to volunteer. In a lot of cases, having a mentor like someone who was formerly incarcerated or someone from your neighborhood that kind of got into trouble but came back and figured their life out and figured stuff out is a really good mentor to have. And I think by having these background checks, we're doing a huge disservice to our communities. And I think it's something that is a long-term project. It is something that that is tough. But I think it's something we need to work on because, when just even right now, perfect example, because of the bus strike and students aren't able to be transported to school, we can't even organize community-wide drives to school because not everyone has BCIs. Yeah. So it's definitely something we need to be working on and thinking about because it is red tape.
I have to say, we have dealt with a huge number of issues. I know there are equal number that we haven't dealt with, but I want to thank you, Kat Kerwin, for coming in and for representing all the new faces that are coming into the electoral process in some way. Some have lost, but I hope they keep working, and some have gotten into office and very soon will be there installed in office, and we certainly wish you all the very best. I cannot imagine the energy and the power of that energy that will help our city, and I certainly want to thank you, Kat, for all you have been doing and for all the voice you've offered to the people who haven't had voices.
Well, thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for watching Good News Rhode Island, and we're sure that you will be making good news yourselves in your neighborhood, and that good news is just around the corner. Thank you for watching.